I want you to have the most badass wallet that's going to last you forever and get better the more you wear it. There's not many things in the world that you can use every day that actually get better as you wear them. And I think that's why leather is really special. Hi everyone, it's Phil here from Ashland Leather. Yesterday we had our first live stream in the shop here with this higher quality camera. I took that footage and cut it apart to show you some of the highlights. In this video you're going to see some of the wallets that we're shipping out, a special small batch of some shell Cordovan Capone money clips. I had a reverse shell Cordovan pouch that we're developing, as well as some shell Cordovan pieces that we've never seen before. So if you weren't there live yesterday to check it out in the video today. Let's look at some brand new small batch stuff. We got the Capones. This is actually the wallet that I have been carrying for almost 6 months now. I carry mine in the English Tan Dublin. So yeah, we have these up. We made a couple of these. I think we made 8 of them, and I really like that texture. And people have been asking me to send photos of specific items, which I'm glad to do because each of them are totally unique and random. So if you want to get one that's to your specific taste, totally happy to do that for you. But let's get into some new stuff here that we haven't seen before. So this first one here is a reverse color 8 shell Cordovan. The reverse color 8 kind of has this more orangey sort of reddish shade, and it ranges. And what I like about the reverse shell is that we get a bunch of random dye marks. So this one has a little bit of that sort of burgundy stain right here. And I really like how the reverse shells wear in, especially on the interior of a wallet. So we do have a small batch of these all reverse color 8 shell Capones, and there's one more, but this is a black marbled shell, and I totally love it. It again has that sort of range of color that you see in the color 8 marbled with those orange tones, but instead of fading from orange to the burgundy, like on this, we fade more to a greenish sort of black shade, and it's really neat. It sort of has like a depth of color. By me tilting it back and forth and giving you different angles of it, you get a little bit better sense of the depth of color, and even then, there's really nothing like having it in person. So this is a pretty sweet black marble shell piece here on this Capone. Let me give you a look at the other one here because, like I said, there's a bit of a range. We do have these up on the flash sale pages site right now. So if you're into the marble shells or the reverse shells, you can pick these up. Check this out. I like how this one has a lot of lighter tones in it, and we don't see too many that are this light sort of everywhere. They tend to be a little bit more like this, where you have a little bit darker tones as the majority of the color. But yeah, usually they're a little bit darker. This particular one is super nice. And like I said, if you want to pick a specific one, I have about, again, 8 or 10 of these that you could choose from. So any of them are available. I can send you photos of specific pieces for you to pick one that you like. Let's look at this belt first. This is something we don't offer as a normal item on our site. This is actually a Horween leather belt that we make, but it's in black Chromexcel. And this black Chromexcel is actually, we have a natural back on it, as we call it. The unintended sort of flesh side of this leather is a natural Chromexcel, and then they stain a black coat on the surface. Or we can also make a mill-dyed black, which is also neat, and it's just a little bit different. I kind of like this a little bit more because once the black Chromexcel is worn in, especially in something like boots, you get this really interesting sort of tonal look when the black finish starts to rub off and sort of scratch off a little bit. You get more of these like taupe undertones that appear from underneath, which is really fun. So this belt is a 32-inch we're sending out today. Here's another item here. This was for a bunch of years my favorite shell color. This is a color 4 shell Lexington key case. It sort of has this interesting color range from a little bit more of like a medium red brown, and then some angles it kind of looks a little bit more caramel. And see how when I sort of spin it like this, how dramatically that color changes? Right there, it kind of looks like color 8. And as I spin it, it sort of goes, like to me, that looks like color 4. As I spin it even more, it's almost turning a little bit more caramel. So this sort of color shift that happens in the leather is totally awesome. Here's something I think you're gonna like. We had a special request for a marbled cigar shell Cordovan one shot, and that's what this is here. And people are really into the marbled cigars right now, and my understanding is that people like that it's a little bit less burgundy. People like the marbled textures of the shells, and I think they've seen a lot of the marbled color 8 like we saw in those Capones earlier. So this one's just a little bit more orangey and brown. It's really, really cool. So we had this one special made. It's going out today also. In fact, if you're into a one shot and you want to try a different leather, this is a pretty good price point just to get your hands on different pieces of leather to try out. That's the whole reason I wanted to do the one shot in the first place. All right, here's another cool one. This is actually the next iteration of the one shot. This is the two shot card case. This one has green shell Cordovan on reverse green in the center, and we've got a little bit of the Horween ink stamp sort of peeking out in the center there, and on the back it's more green shell. These two shots are pretty neat. In fact, the one shots and two shots we're noticing people are kind of into for COVID times where you can't really use a lot of cash. Having said that, this guy will fit cash in the larger slot here in the center, which is why we call it the two shot. It's got two little separate card holders, but the larger one, you can fit cards and you can fit some cash. This one is super cool. I don't think I've seen this before, but take a look here. Fat Herbie, but this is a Fat Herbie in raw denim, which is really neat. But on the back, we have intense blue shell on top of that raw denim. So this is a good chance to sort of show the difference of what the polishing does from Horween. When they apply that Venetian cream and then they glaze it with that glass rod, it gives you a good sense of how much the color changes just from the polishing. So we'll get a little bit darker, and this is how you can kind of expect it to age sort of naturally anyways, is the intense blue is sort of a future version of what the raw denim is. When you wear this, it will get a little bit darker, and it will definitely get more bright and shinier. So you can see it's kind of dull to start, which I think is pretty cool to have an experience with something that's just going to change when you wear it. This is an all reverse color 8 shell Cordovan Tony the Ant. So all reverse means all of the pattern pieces that would have normally been made for the shell side, we flipped it backwards and reversed it. So we've got color 8 reverse here on top of more color 8 reverse in the center. I suggest doing this if you like a bit of patina. The reverse shell will polish and darken quite well, but you might want to do it if you want to see the Horween ink stamp and these random dye marks. I think it's a super cool look, but this is pretty cool here. What we tried to do on this one is to separate out the Horween ink stamp into sort of a continuous piece. Like if you cut out the color 8 shell in the center and smushed it, this would be one Horween ink stamp that continues across those two pieces. That color 4 shell. This is the Tony the Ant, and it's such a clean look. This one doesn't have any stamping on it, which is a little bit different for this. We can do that by request, and it's no problem to make any of these without stamps. Oops. But again, the color 4 has that really neat sort of color shift to it. And as I spin it around, you can see it kind of range from more of that classic burgundy color 8 shade to a little bit more of like a reddish medium brown. And then it kind of goes a little caramel at some angles, a little bit more yellow, which is super fascinating. So I like spinning this guy around. I actually kind of like how clean the interior is on this guy. But see this little pen mark? That's a little unfortunate. But natural Essex is very cool. And it is tanned using the same tree barks as the shell. So you do get some of the same characteristics as the Cordovan. I find the Essex to be quite delicate. It's very tough to work with. And I hate to say that. But when you get it right, it's super nice. The reason that it's challenging, especially in like the natural, which is what I prefer, it's very difficult for Horween or any tannery to keep a light color like this super, super clean. So we have a hard time cutting it on our larger patterns like this. And I know we're not making shoes and stuff, but sometimes there's like imperfections that we're just not comfortable cutting into a wallet. So we kind of moved away from the natural Essex because it was hard for them to keep clean. Max says, what do you think of the Horween Chromexcel 113 horsehides for Herbies? We have done some Chromexcel horse Herbies. They're cool. The horse hides tend to be a little bit more grainy, and the grain character is a little bit different than the steer hides on the horses. I like it. It's inherently thinner, which I like. It seems like a lot of people don't like thin wallets these days, which plainly put, I think they're like kind of wrong. I think the thicknesses that we've developed for, I think, are correct, but people have a perception that extra thick leather is a little bit better. I don't find it to sit as nicely in my pocket. So we found this sort of sweet spot with something like this, which is about a 4 ounce leather that we find to be the perfect thickness for most everything we do, with the big exception being the Johnny the Fox interiors, where we need to actually use naturally thin horse hides. So that I have my choice of any leather that Horween makes and any wallet that I make. For some reason, I can't seem to get away from this guy, and it's really, really nice. I'm actually surprised at how much I enjoy this, because for many years I've been like a Herbie or bust kind of guy. I like only wanted to use the Herbies, but this one I find to be just super, super easy to use because of the card slots on the outside. Right now, with COVID, there's not a lot of opportunity to use cash, so I haven't done a ton of cash, but it certainly sits in there great. And we had a front pocket wear in mind for this specific design, and I wear it in my back pocket. So that's why I'm so surprised, is because of how well it sits in my back pocket. People have commented that their Capone won't hold a single bill. So I just put a 20 in there on live stream, and I didn't prep this wallet at all. It's holding it fine. So if your money clip does not hold a single bill tightly like this one, there might be something wrong with the hardware, and I'm more than happy to sort of fix that up for you. So I've got the last of its kind wallet that we're going to unbox right now. And then there's two more things I want to show you, and then we can do some questions. But there's some shells here that today is the first day I've ever seen a shell like this. Let's do an unboxing here. Normally this box is closed, of course, when it comes. I'm not going to show you the lid here because it has a customer's address on it. In fact, this one's for Bob K in Dallas. So thank you so much, Bob. So when you get your wallet in the mail, it comes in this box, and this is something we've been doing since the company started. When I first started leather crafting, I didn't really know how to get a logo onto the leather, so I bought a hand tool that you sort of like stamp into the leather and just like leave a mark. And that's actually what we still use today. So I had this tool, and we were starting, didn't have a ton of money, and I was like, what am I going to do with this $100-something custom tool I made with my logo on it? And we decided it'd be cool to drip some waxes on the boxes and then just press that tool to get this sort of wax seal look. And I'm still really happy with how it looks. I really like it, and it seems like people really enjoy that too. So we've also got on the inside, when you open it up, you get this really nice letterpress card. Let me try to tone down the brightness here. You get this really nice letterpress card. If you're looking for letterpress, there is a lady I work with and a company I work with that's incredible. We've been having them make our stuff for years. Right here in Chicago, it's called Sterical Press. So if you need some letterpress done, they do really great work. So this is actually pressed 3 times, which is like excessive. A lot of people don't want to spend the extra money to press a card that many times, but we press our logo in one color. So you get this red, and then our name in that blue, and then there's something called a blind deboss on the outside, which I think is my favorite part. So we kind of frame it out, and that's sort of interesting texture. So that's our hang tag cards that we put in all the wallets we do. And then we have a cloth bag here, which is nothing terribly exciting, sort of like a dust bag. But this wallet here, get a little dust off of it. We can get dust. This is the last one that we have of the 100% color 8 shell foxes, and I'm sad to see it go because these are so nice. They're just super badass. So the interiors are the challenge for us. We pick naturally thin pieces of leather for the insides of the fox to keep the thickness just right. And that's what you're seeing here. This sort of cross section is almost like exactly what you want to see. This sort of like not chunky, huge fat thing. And it's hard to keep the thickness down when you're working with this many layers of leather on the inside. And in particular on the shell, you don't get to order the shell in different thicknesses. Each shell is a different thickness. And even within the shell itself, it has a wild range of thickness. If you want to learn more about the leather thickness, I just made a video in January about leather thickness where we gauge out the shells. But sometimes the weight range can be like 3 or 4 ounces, even in one shell. So it's hard for us to get the naturally thin pieces of leather for the Johnny the Fox. Now, a lot of people ask, well, you know, why don't you thin down the leather? And we could make a lot of money, but we'd have a lot of people that would be kind of upset, because that leather, when you thin it down, you really, really reduce the tensile strength in it. When you leave the leather sort of naturally the thickness that it began with, you tend to get a bit stronger leather. So that's why we pick naturally thin pieces of shell for the insides of the Johnny the Fox. And the reason you only see them more frequently on the Color 8 and black is that's because Horween makes more black and Color 8 shell. So I have more opportunity to find a rare thin piece on more common colors. So if you ask me to make, you know, a raw denim interior on a Fox, that raw denim is not getting made very often. There's not a whole lot of that shell being produced. So to get a thin piece from a rare shell is like finding a needle in a haystack in a haystack. It's pretty challenging, but I'm super pumped with this one. We got a nice little Horween ink stamp on the inside. We've upgraded our finishing on this guy. We were doing these hand stained edges and then we wax and burnish them. So you get this really nice sort of finished look. I wonder if the color's going to show, but we actually used the same dyes on the edges of these card slots and on the edges of the wallet as the Color 8 shell is finished with. So it's a nice matching color. This here, Nutaku, this is actually the reverse side of the Color 8 tumbled shell. So let me flip this inside out here. If I open this guy up and look underneath here, this inside part here, the darker sort of reddish brown part here, this is actually tumbled color number 8 shell on the inside here. And then we flipped it backwards so you get that Horween measuring machine stamp on top of that. And there's a couple things that are unique about this. Is most often shell Cordovan is not tumbled. It's sort of like a special thing that Skip Horween has been doing, is trying some tumbling on the shells. And this is something that you probably have never seen before, is the sort of like sueded effect that you can get even on the shell, the reverse side of that shell. It's really, really nice. And I don't know how well I'm able to show it here, but it does have a nice bit of tracking. Like I could write my name in here if I wanted. It's really sort of velvety feeling. It's pretty neat. It's pretty cool. And yeah, people are really into the measuring machine stamp. Let me explain this. Every piece of leather that Horween makes gets measured because they sell their product by the square foot. The shell Cordovan is slightly different. They don't sell it by the square foot. They sell it by the piece. But this, let me try to explain what's going on these stamps here. So Horween USA, that's the company name. Underneath that, it says 1,7 foot squared. So that's 1.7 square feet is how big this shell was. And it was measured on April 16th. So it's probably measured last year, like almost a year ago. But that's what these measuring machines translate to. All right, I'm gonna trick you here, so don't freak out. This may look like just an incredible piece of marbled black Cordovan, but there's something magical on the back side of it. And this is something that I've never seen before, and everybody that I've shown it to today, including when I first saw it today, I saw this for the first time about 4 hours ago. It's one of those things that just drops your jaw. So marbled shell on this side, and we're gonna make these into, you can't buy this. In fact, Skip told me he's not sure they're able to make it again, but we're gonna make some private stock stuff out of this other side here. So check this out. Psychedelic Shell. All right, I don't know how they did this, but it kind of looks like pools of color. Let me try to turn up the brightness a little bit. This is pretty cool. It's like a layered effect. That is so crazy. I don't know. It kind of looks like the 60s or something. It's like layers of color that I think they accidentally did. And then Skip saw it and said, oh my God, that's awesome. And he polished it. So it has an incredible luster right now. So he actually glazed this, and it's super smooth and bright, and like, what a crazy color. It looks like acid bleach or something. It looks like, I can kind of assume what happened here, but based on a couple things. Let me try to explain what I see. Close your eyes on mushrooms. Yep. So see these harsh lines here? Those to me look like the shapes of shells. These sort of like oval shapes. And it looks to me, and you can kind of see this shape here. This this kind of like tip of the shell. I don't know if you can see that or how well you can see that. But it looks to me like they had some wet pieces of shell after the staining and let them sit on top of each other. But it ended up being this like sort of, I don't know, it kind of reminds me of like soap bubbles or something, like where these void sections are. That's pretty cool. So I have 2 of these, and I'm only going to make private stock out of this. So anybody that's interested, you're going to have to wait for that. But here's the other one. That's pretty cool. So I guess we're going to call this Psychedelic Shell. Look how neat that is. I've never seen something like this before. And I think the first words out of my mouth when Skip showed me this was, wow. And then the second words were, can you do this again? And he said, no. So he said, only make, special custom stuff out of it. It's not something that we can offer. I thought that this shell here is just like the craziest thing. That's so cool. I don't know, maybe it's a little much, but I've never seen it before, so that type of stuff really excites me. Chris says, how much is one full shell from Horween? Just curious. And that's a good question. It depends on if you're Alden or if you're, my mom. But the non-joke answer is like, you probably can't get it unless you already have an existing relationship with them, which is, an unfortunate reality. I do know that Horween has their customers that have been around for decades, like Alden and Alan Edmonds. So they prioritize their existing clients who they have a relationship and have had a relationship with for many years. And I know that there's also resellers in Japan, in Italy, I believe resells to there's a shop called Europelli, I believe, in Italy that will resell all the Horween stuff in Europe. And then there's a couple shops in the United States that will resell Horween stuff also. I suggest checking out Maverick. I'm not sure how much shell they do, as well as Tannery Row. But the pricing, so it's confusing on the pricing, because the Cordovan is not sold by the square foot, it's sold by the piece. So if there is a, how do I describe this? There's different grades. So the largest grade is called an XL. And it actually even gets larger than that, which is like so rare they don't even categorize it. But if you've ever seen a one-piece shell Cordovan belt, that is from a mule or a donkey that has like a continuous shell membrane across the whole backside of the animal. And that's pretty special. So I think Nick and Skip like to keep that for themselves to make shell belts. But so there's XL1, and then there's a grade called X. Then there's a 2, 3, 4, 5, and a chip. And each of those are different prices. But they all sort of correspond with a different size. So an XL is huge, a 1 is very, very big, and then a chip is under 1 square foot. So the price can range, I gotta look, I don't know what they're pricing it, but you could assume the most expensive stuff is like $350, maybe more for an XL, and then the less expensive stuff is like $100. But you could get like a real price instead of me just making it up. You can ask, the Tannery Row, and I think they sell that. So you can get a nice price from them. You might just have to wait quite a while to actually get your hands on some shell. But once you get it, it's totally worth it. Ball says, can you show some patented items? Anyways, it starts off really light. It turns golden brown and gets shinier. So I love the raw natural for that reason. Raw natural. This is 1 year of use, and it's like much more golden brown and a lot brighter, shinier. I've been wearing this Capone in English Tan Dublin. It does this. They all sort of get darker and more golden, with the exception of like dark colors, like Color 8 black and like intense blue. The denim blue does get darker. All of the sort of more earth tony colors tend to be tend to get a little bit more golden. They kind of have this like reddish orange that appears from underneath. It's, if you're familiar with a veg tan leather, it's sort of how most veg tans wear in, is they tend to get a little bit more golden and red and sort of more caramely, and then brighter and shinier, like this guy here. So I don't know, 5 months on this guy. I should keep better track. And then I actually have 4 wallets. So here's a natural Essex. I shouldn't show this because we don't sell it, but natural Essex wears in really well. If you find a leather crafter making something on natural Essex, check out how sweet that is. That's really cool. It's tanned with the same tree barks as the shell, so you get a lot of the same like shell concepts in that. And then the other one here is natural Stockyard, which is what we ended up replacing the natural Essex with. It's also very nice. It's lighter. I think it's a little bit more polarizing color because it is so light, and it's a slow patina. It takes a while to change. Sergey says, have you ever seen Horween make English Tan Dublin and Horsehide? Yes. If so, would it be good for some boots? We actually buy Horsehide English Tan Dublin for the Giant of the Fox interiors, and I love it. Horsehide is challenging for 2 big reasons. And the biggest reason is the thickness. You don't get thick horsehides. So most times horsehides are only appropriate for like a liner material in a boot. I like a little bit thinner wallets, so like I would use it for an outside of a wallet. It seems like most people want a little thicker, so we don't do it. But on a boot, you might need like, it'd be really hard for you to find a horsehide on a consistent basis that you could cut some uppers for boots and shoes out of. It's just too thin. And then the other really big challenge is the selections. So that's sort of like a leather world term. It means like the clarity of the grain. Are there scratches? Are there scars? Are there pits? Are there butcher cuts? Basically any sort of thing that's inconsistent with what the leather ought to be, you gotta cut around. And you can, when you have enough experience, you can sort of cut some things in, but you have to know what to not cut. It's very difficult, which is actually reminds me of like Grant Stone. So like on these are long wings in natural Chromexcel that I have from Grant Stone. They do a really good job cutting, and it's surprisingly so, because they're cutting something that's challenging. Anybody that is familiar with Chromexcel will know that it can tend to run a little bit loose. And what I mean by loose is when the leather flexes in on itself, you tend to see it right here, where the grain layer starts to delaminate from the fiber layers below, and it gives you like a sort of pebbly look. Now, that looseness only occurs on some sections in the hide, and they tend to happen in the flanks, like we call this the pocket, like the arm of the animal, or the armpit. The fibers there are a little bit looser because the animal moves a lot. We tend to see a little bit looser in the bellies, and then the back legs as well. So in those pockets, you, as a shoemaker, you would look at this leather and go like, that looks great, I'm going to cut it. But once you start to flex it, you'll see these sort of pebbling delamination things. So it's a combination of experience and skill to know what to cut and when to cut. Everything I've seen from Grant Stone blows my mind, because I can't believe that they have enough knowledge to know what to cut. And the 2 pairs that I've had from them, and all the pairs that I've seen, have really tight Chromexcel, and I know that it's not tight everywhere on the skin. You're not supposed to cut 100% of the skin. It's not like cutting plastic. It's not like cutting fabric. You have to understand the material to know what to cut, and it's not easy. It's really hard to figure out that from experience, like what's going to look good. So I'm really impressed that Grant Stone does that. And then on the horse hides, going back to the original question, it's really hard to get clean horse hides. the animals are older and they live in the field longer. And the longer I live, the more scars and scratches I'm going to end up on my body. And it's the same for a horse. It's the same for a steer. So the horses tend to be really challenging to cut. There's a lot of scratches and scuffs and scars, and they're pretty rough. So the horse hides are tough to cut. So I don't think you're going to see many pieces of footwear made out of that. But it would be like a really rugged look and pretty thin. So maybe you could put it on like a sneaker or something. I noticed while I was editing that video how much liveliness came back to this color just after polishing it with the Venetian cream. And the Venetian does have a bit of cleaning properties to it. So if you're getting intense blue or denim blue that's turning black, you might need to clean it. It might just be covered in dirt. Jaredobi says, I love your customer. I love that you're customer centric. You sent me a video for a purchase. I really appreciate it. You're welcome. And to me, that's the most important thing that I do. Is I kind of have this. I was scarred from an experience a bunch of years ago. The long story short was, I was super poor and I was moving into a house with a couple guys, and we needed to rent a truck. Go down to the truck rental place, and the guy said, why don't you take a walk around the truck, and you can point out all the pre-existing damage that's on the truck, so you don't have to pay for these damages. So I go around the truck with him and I'm marking down every little thing, and he said, I don't mind to continue to do this with you, but I want you to know that we just don't rip people off. And the way that he told that to me made me feel respected as a customer, and that's the way I want you to feel. So I want you to feel like I'm a real person, which is why I like to get on the camera, even though I'm extremely introverted. I like you to know that I'm not here to rip anybody off. I want you to have the most badass wallet that's going to last you forever and get better the more you wear it. There's not many things in the world that you can use every day that actually get better as you wear them. And I think that's why leather is really special. Ball, you have a really good question here. Ball says, what makes leather patina? Is it the tree tanned in the leather, oxidizing and getting dark? Is it the surface getting smooth, or is it the oil rising and sticking to the surface? I can BS you here, but I really don't know. And I've asked people that have gone to school for leather tanning why this happens, but they don't know either. I think it's, I could suspect that it's like the activation of oils inside of wood fibers, essentially. It's like if you took a piece of wood and just like polished it with a little bit of oil, it'll start to get dark. And I think in veg tan leathers in particular, there's little tiny bits of wood that are bound to the fibers in the leather. And I think that's what you're getting. I don't know. So I'm not going to lie to you, but I think that's what's happening. On Nataku, you say, if you got a moment, I had my Chromexcel boots out in the snow, got some salt stains on them. Should I wash them? This is a really amazing question. I get excited about this because I did a lot of work on this question. Nataku says, I got Chromexcel in the snow. I got salt stains on them now. Do I wash it with soap and water and then tanner's blend on it? Yes, that's exactly what you need to do. But the most important part that you didn't mention there is once you wash that Chromexcel with soap and water, it's very, very important. Don't expedite the drying and let them air dry overnight completely before you apply the conditioner. I was talking with the tanner at Horween about this, and he created the tanner's blend, and he mentioned that to me. You can sort of think of the leather like you think of your skin. So of course you can wash off, like salt if you've been like brined or whatever, you can sort of rinse it out. And then the soap helps to take out some of the fats and like more gross sort of greasy things, which is bound to happen. It sort of release the dust from the leather oils that were tanned in there. So you do want to use like a tiny bit of soap. I use dish soap and I put like 1 or 2 little drops in like a 12-ounce cup. You can buy mild soap that will work also. But he explained that the salt stains won't come out unless you let it air dry. I'm not sure why. I should ask him again. But yeah, we got the laser going in the back again. But I'm not sure why that happens. When you wash it with soap, it's just like washing your hands. Like I just washed my hands and they're super chapped right now and kind of cracky. I should put lotion on my hands to make them a little bit more nourished and not like dried out. That's what the Tanner's blend does for your leather goods. Vic Yang says, will there be more Fat Herbie passports available? We can totally make a passport, Herbie. I think we called it the Herbie Traveler is what we were calling it. We do have a passport model that we can have made for you. I like it a little bit better for a passport. And I want to make another design for a passport that has sort of like a pen slot, like a full-size pen slot in it. Psychedelic Shell. This is the first time I have seen this. So 4 hours ago or so is when I was first introduced this to you guys, or to me. So I wanted to show it to you guys. That's so cool. There's something also about this that's interesting to point out. Anybody that's a leather crafter that's checking this out, it's hard to sort of judge a piece of leather until you cut it into context. Like sometimes it's helpful to roll it slightly like this. It will give you a better sense of like what that really looks like. And that's why I kind of do this sometimes. When you see something huge like this, you're never going to understand like what it's going to look like. You kind of have to have a really good imagination to think about what this will look like. But that's super neat. Let me show you the other one. All right, here's the other guy. I mean, how cool is that? It's so cool. I think I like, I don't know. I think I like the darker spots in it. I mean, what the hell? It's so cool. Actually, I said darker spots. I think I like this a little bit more. I'd imagine most people are gonna like, you know, sort of this. And then the glazing on it is super nice. That's so cool. I'm really happy that he sold me this. I mean, how interesting. We do have some other crazy stuff too. I mean, not as crazy as the psychedelic, but you know, if you like unique pieces, I do have 3 different small batch Capones up. So we got the marbled black, which I really like. I mean, that's certainly not as nuts as this guy, but it's a similar vibe. It's actually, this is what the marbled, I think this looks like marbled blue or something. This kind of looks like marbled black. You can see a little bit more blues and greens in there. So we do have a couple of these available. We make these for small batches when we find shells that are neat. So all the randomized things, marbleds and reverses, tend to be totally random. So there's a range of color. If you're into one, I highly encourage you to email me so I can send you photos of what we have available, and then you can just pick whatever one you love. Have this guy that's a little bit less expensive, which is all reverse colorate. This one has 2 stamps on it, which is nuts. That's pretty rare. And then the inside is also reverse. I like reverses for interiors a lot. Here's some more. This one I think only has 1. So yeah, we do try to cut the Horween ink stamp into visible spots. That is really cool. We do have, I think we have less of the Color 8 reverses. And then this one's been up for a couple days now. And this is the Color 8 marbled. I also like this. I struggle picking a favorite between the black marbled and Color 8. I think I like when there's a really dramatic contrast on the Color 8 marbled. I think most people like a little bit more of a subtle contrast like this one has. But I like when it goes really burgundy to like really orange sort of immediately, in the same way that the inside right of this one does. I think I would go for Color 8 marbled, but if it's a more subtle marbling, I like the black. So, hey, thanks for checking it out, guys. Just giving you guys more information about the leather, again, so you can make good decisions on stuff you're picking up. So hopefully you enjoyed it. Oh, the other thing I want to do, I really want to do, I want to shop with you to buy me some Aldens. So I think we'll do a live stream where I'm like going to all the different Alden resellers and looking at their makeups, and then we can kind of pick one together. I can order it and then we can talk about it. I think it'd be kind of fun. So thanks again, guys. I got to figure out how to turn this off.